Imagine China, not as one big unified country, but broken up into all these smaller kingdoms, constantly fighting with each other, like Game of Thrones, but in ancient China.
Okay, Game of Thrones, I'm in. So how many of these little kingdoms were there?
Well, there were a lot, but 7 of them became the main players. These were the heavy hitters known as, wait for it, the 7 warring states. Creative,
That's
right?
very straightforward. I like it. So out of those 7, who are we focusing on today?
Today's story focuses on 3 of them, Wei, Zhao, and Qi. Think of them as the main characters in our little drama here.
All right, drama. Love it. So who's who? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Who's who?
Well, it's not so much about good guys and bad guys. It's more like ambitious guys and guys trying to survive. At the start of our story, Wei was the powerhouse. They were located right smack in the middle of all the action, and they'd really built themselves up strong military reforms, the whole 9 yards. And they had this king who, let's just say, he wasn't shy about his ambitions. He wanted to conquer his neighbors, Han and Zhao, and kind of recreate this old kingdom called Jin. He wanted to bring back the glory days, you know.
Okay, ambitious guy, check. So how did he go about that?
Well, he decided to start with Zhao. Sent his top general, a guy named Peng Huan, with a huge army to attack their capital city, Handan. It was a full-on siege, the kind where they surround the city and cut off all supplies and try to starve them out. Nasty business.
Yeah, that's not good. Sounds like Zhao's in a pretty tight spot.
Yeah, they were in big trouble. So naturally, they looked for help. They sent out an SOS to their neighbor, the state of Qi. And that brings us to the big strategic question, the aha moment we want you to get. How did Qi manage to help Zhao without directly going up against Wei's main force at Handan?
Okay, yeah, that is a good question. Because you'd think, oh, your ally's being attacked, you send your army to help them fight, right?
Right, that's the obvious move. But that's where things get interesting, because Qi didn't do that. They did something much smarter. He played the long game.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So, picture this. The king of Qi gets this desperate plea from Zhao, right? He calls in his advisor and says, guys, what do? We got to help these guys, right?
Seems like a no-brainer. Help your buddy out.
Yeah, you'd think so. But not everyone agreed. The prime minister, Zhu Ji, was like, whoa, hold on, your majesty. This could be a huge mistake. Getting involved is risky. It'll cost us a fortune. And what do we even get out of it? He was definitely team stay out of it.
He sounds like a cautious guy. What about the others?
Well, General Tianji, the military guy, he was all for immediate action. We got to help Zhao now. Every minute we waste just makes things worse. He was ready to charge in there and fight.
Okay, so we got the cautious guy and the gung-ho guy. Sounds like your typical war council. Was there anyone else?
Yeah, there's one more guy. And this is where it gets good. This is where the strategic genius comes in. His name was Sunbin, and he was a military strategist, a thinker. Like, he was known for seeing the bigger picture, thinking several steps ahead.
Okay, Sunbin. I'm remembering that name. What did he say?
Sunbin's advice. It was brilliant. He said, yeah, help Zhao, but don't just blindly rush into a fight with Wei. Don't fall into their trap. He was thinking about Qi's interests first and foremost.
Yeah.
He basically said, look, if we throw all our forces at Wei right now, both of us will be weakened. And who benefits from that? Zhao. They'll come out on top while we're licking our wounds.
Wow, so Sunbin was already playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. That's some serious strategic thinking.
Exactly. He saw the long game. And this is a key insight that applies to so many situations, not just war. Sometimes the best way to deal with the powerful opponent isn't to fight them head on, but to find their weak spot and exploit it. You got to make them react to you, make them play your game.
Okay, I see where this is going. So what was Wei's weak spot?
Well, we'll get to that. But first, back to the king of Qi. He listened to Sunbin. He was like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So he sends a message to Zhao, tells him, hang in there, guys. Help is on the way. We've got your back. Just to keep their morale up, you know.
Smart move. Buy yourself some time. So what were they actually doing while they were telling Zhao to hang tight?
Okay, so here's the sneaky part. While they were reassuring Zhao, they were actually busy doing their own thing. Qi, along with a couple of their smaller allies, they went and laid siege to a city on Wei's border.
Oh, I see. So they're applying pressure somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. It's like a distraction, right? Keep them busy on one side while you're planning something bigger. And here's the thing. Wei, they weren't exactly having a smooth time with Zhao either. They were winning some battles, yeah, but the siege of Handan was dragging on. It was costing them a lot of resources, a lot of men.
War is never easy, huh? So Wei's stuck in this messy siege, and then what?
Then things get even worse for Wei. Another powerful kingdom, this one called Qin, they decided to take advantage of the situation. They attacked Wei from the west, actually managed to grab a chunk of their territory.
Oh, man, that's gotta hurt. Talk about a double whammy.
Yeah, Wei's having a really bad day. They've got their main army tied up in the siege of Handan, and now their western border's wide open for Qin to waltz in. And remember, Zhao is still hanging on by a thread. Handan's about to fall.
Okay, so we got Wei sandwiched between two enemies. Their forces stretched thin. Sounds like the perfect opportunity for Sunbin to strike.
And he does. Remember General Tianji, the guy who was all about rushing in to help Zhao? Well, he's still itching for a fight. He goes to Sunbin and says, all right, we got to do something. Handan's going to fall any minute. Let's hit Wei's army at Handan, crush him, save the day.
Seems logical. What's Sunbin say to that?
Sunbin says, nope, don't do that.
What? Seriously? Why not?
Sunbin saw a much more clever and ultimately much more effective way to help Zhao. He said, instead of attacking Wei at Handan, we're going to hit them at Pingling.
Tingling, where's that?
Pingling was another city of Wei, to the south. It wasn't a huge city, but it was strategically important. It controlled a big chunk of territory and had a strong military presence there. Taking Pingling wouldn't be a walk in the park.
So why Pingling? What was the point of attacking there?
That's the genius of Sunbin. He knew that by attacking Pingling, he'd be forcing Wei to make a choice. Stay and fight at Handan, risking losing Pingling, or pull back some troops to defend Pingling, giving Zhao a chance to breathe.
Okay, so it was a move designed to force Wei to split their forces.
Yeah.
Divide and conquer, right?
Exactly. And Sunbin wasn't done. He instructed Tianji to basically make a big show of attacking Pingling. He said, engage in battle, but don't worry too much about winning right away.
Wait a minute. He's telling his own general not to worry about winning. That's wild.
It sounds crazy, right? But it was all part of the plan. He even pointed out that Qi's supply lines would be vulnerable running through Wei territory. And he told Tianji to act like he didn't even notice. The whole point was to confuse Wei, to make them think Qi was making a mistake.
Okay, so it's all about deception. Make them think you're making a blunder. Make them underestimate you. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's like psychological warfare, right? You got to get in their heads. So Tianji's army, they march towards Pingling, all set to attack. And right before the battle, Tianji goes back to Sunbin. He's like, all right, so how do we attack this city?
Yeah, what do you say?
Sunbin says, okay, tell me, do you have any generals who aren't exactly your best?
Oh, no. Is he really asking him to send his worst generals into battle?
Yep. And Tianji's like, well, yeah, there's these two guys, Qi Chang and Gao Tang. They're not the sharpest tools in the shed.
And Sunbin says?
He says, perfect. Send them to lead the attack.
He's sending them in to lose.
Exactly. And you know what? That's exactly what happened. Qi Chang and Gao Tang get their butts kicked at Pingling, just like Sunbin predicted.
This is insane. It's like he's setting them up to fail.
He is, but it's all part of the bigger plan. Remember, he's playing the long game here. He needs to make Wei think that Qi is weak, disorganized, that they're making mistakes.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So what happens next? Tianji's probably freaking out at this point.
Oh, yeah. He's like, Sunbin, we need to talk. We haven't taken Pingling, and now we've lost 2 generals. What's the plan? He's probably thinking Sunbin's lost his mind.
Rightfully so. So what did Sunbin say? What's the next move?
This is where it all comes together. Sunbin says, okay, now we hit them where it really hurts. Send a bunch of light chariots west, straight towards Wei's capital city, Doliang.
Whoa, hold on. Chariots, like those ancient horse-drawn things, against a whole capital city.
Yep. But here's the thing. He wasn't expecting them to conquer the city. The chariots were lightly armed. They wouldn't stand a chance in a real fight. It was a purely symbolic attack designed to do one thing: piss off Pang Wan.
Pang Wan, the Wei general, the guy besieging Handan.
The one and only. Think about it. He's been out there for months slogging away at this siege, probably thinking he's about to win, and then he gets news that some chariots are harassing his capital, the heart of his kingdom.
Oh, man, that's got to be a huge ego blow.
Right, it's like a slap in the face. Sunbin knew that Pang Wan couldn't ignore that. He had to respond. He had to defend his capital, his king, his reputation.
So he's going to pull back from Handan and chase after those chariots, right?
Exactly. He's going to fall right into Sunbin's trap.
This is amazing. So what does Sunbin do while Pang Wan's rushing back?
He sets up an ambush. He takes Qi's main army and hides them at a place called Gilin, right along the route Pang Wan's going to have to take.
He's waiting for him. It's all coming together.
And then boom, Pang Wan walks right into it.
I bet he wasn't expecting that. What happened?
Total chaos. Pang Wan's army was exhausted from the forced march back from Handan, and they were totally unprepared for an ambush.
And Qi wins.
Qi wins. Big time. It was a decisive victory. And with Wei's army crushed, they had no choice but to lift the siege of Handan. Zhao was saved not by a direct attack, but by a brilliant strategic maneuver that targeted Wei's weakest point.
That's incredible. So they saved Zhao by attacking Wei's capital, even though they weren't really trying to conquer it. That's mind-blowing.
It's a classic example of indirect warfare, of using strategy and deception to achieve your goals. And you know what? This whole story, it's not just some random historical event. It became a famous stratagem in Chinese military thought.
Oh, really? What's it called?
It's called, and I'm not making this up, relieving the state of Zhao by besieging the state of Wei.
Haha, that's the name of the strategy. That's amazing. So what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from this, besides the fact that Sunbin was a total genius?
The big takeaway is that sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to attack it head on. Sometimes you have to be more strategic, more indirect, find your opponent's weakness, the thing they value most, and exploit it. Make them react to you.
It's like in that movie, what was it called? The Princess Bride with the poison cups. You make your opponent choose the cup you want them to choose, even though it seems like they have all the power.
Yeah, exactly. It's about controlling the situation, even when it looks like you're at a disadvantage.
So how does this apply to us in the 21st century? We're not exactly fighting wars with chariots anymore. Well, the principles are the same, even if the context is different. Think about it. We all face challenges, right? In our jobs, our relationships, our lives. And sometimes those challenges feel insurmountable, like there's no way to overcome them. But what if, instead of banging our heads against the wall, we took a step back and thought more strategically? What if we found that leverage point, that vulnerability that could shift the whole situation in our favor?
I like that. So instead of fighting a losing battle, find a smarter way to win. That's a great takeaway.
Exactly. And, it doesn't have to be about conflict either. It can be about persuasion, about negotiation. It's about understanding what the other person really cares about and using that knowledge to achieve your goals.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, here's a little homework assignment. Think about the challenges you're facing right now. Think about the people you're dealing with. What are their capitals? What are those things they're fiercely protective of? And how can you use that knowledge to achieve your goals? It's all about thinking outside the box, about being creative and strategic. And you know what? Sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that no one sees coming.
And remember, sometimes the best way to win is to not fight at all. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks for listening.